Hello everyone, Dr. Watson here again, and in this video I want to introduce you to the website that I've been talking to you about a lot, the National Center for Educational Statistics. The address right up here above, nces.ed.gov, and there's also a link in a number of materials I've provided to you. As I've told you, this is a website that's maintained by the federal government, actually through the United States Department of Education. You can see down here at the bottom, U.S. Department of Education, Institute of Education Sciences, National Center for Educational Statistics. This pulls together large data sets that are derived from a fairly broad and diverse group of surveys and data collection tools, most of them ongoing. Things that are included here are all the data from NAEP, the so-called Nations Report Card, that standardized test that's given to students all across the country. You can also find information here on higher education from a data collection program called iPads. And there are a couple different entry points on here for information into that data set. All public universities, actually all universities that receive any kind of federal money or federal assistance, are required to report data into this system, and that data can be searched through here. There's also data available for in separate types of databases for private institutions, both higher education and pre-K through 12. You can find early childhood data through this website, and you can also find international education data. For instance, those international tests that we hear about every year, PISA and TIMSS, can be explored through here. I'll show you where those can be found actually, and many, many more. We're on the home page right now. NCES, in addition to our work, you may want to browse the publications and products list here. They put out it's a large research center actually, and they put out a lot of their own publications, which in addition to our research, you may be interested in looking at some of them. Many of these are available to be downloaded as PDF copies for free. You don't have to purchase them since they're government documents. The areas of the most interest to us right now for our work are the Surveys and Programs tab and Data Tools. And in just a minute, I'm going to go into Data Tools and go into one database. There are many, many different ones that are available here. I'm going to go into one and show you how that one works, and go into a little data related to higher education. Do browse through the website though. If you look under here, or here under the Surveys and Programs tab, you can see some of the things listed here. Here's NAAP, and I'll go through that in a separate video. We also have an adult literacy assessment, early childhood data, as I was referring to, a lot of elementary and secondary data here. Before we had the Common Core standards, we've had the Common Core of data for a long time. This is data from public schools around the country that's reported into the feds. Schools and Staffing Survey, and there's a link here for more because there's a lot under elementary and secondary education. International activities, library statistics. Here's some of our post-secondary databases. You can see there's more here too. We've got iPads, which I was talking to you about. Also the National Post-Secondary Student Aid Study that has more detailed information on information related to student financial aid. We also have some more specialized databases related to data systems and many more. And if you click in any of these, you'll find subsets within databases too. So like I said, do browse through what's here. Okay, so like I said, we're going to go over to data and tools. A couple things before we're going to go into this custom data sets and tables area. There are also some search tools for searching through the database, through the website to look for different types of information. Since there is so much here, you may want to make use of that, or at least take a look at it. This is interesting, pure comparison tools. There's information here for public schools for P12. And then in this other area to access iPads, you can do comparisons between different types of institutions and comparable institutions, which can be very helpful. Like I said, there are multiple data entry points into the iPad system. This is one. I'm going to go back up through another one. So I'm going to go back one, and we're going to go into custom data sets and tables. And you can see we do have more to choose from yet again. This tool right here, EDAT, the Education Data Analysis Tool, this is what people would use who are doing, if you recall what I wrote in the module, there are multiple levels of analysis available through these sites. This is where you would go if you were going to be downloading data as a researcher and doing your own really in-depth analysis with it. We've also got ELSI here, which is another way of accessing stats information on elementary and secondary schools. This is the International Data Explorer that I was telling you about, and you can see some of the tests here, PISA, PEARLS, and TIMS. This is where you can look at that international data we're always hearing about. iPads Analytics, yet one more entry point for iPads, that higher education database. Here's the NAEP Data Explorer, and like I said, we'll go to that in another video. And down here are two areas that are very user-friendly for working through the data, pulling out information, and you can even do some analyses right there with the tools that are available. Quick Stats is related to post-secondary education. PowerStats includes post-secondary education information, so higher ed, and you can also access some early childhood information in here. So I'm going to use this one as an example right now, and they all are set up slightly differently. So the way to figure them out is just kind of to go in and look around. There are good help features throughout this website, and there are a number of tutorials too related to specific databases. I'll show you one right in here in this PowerStats area. Now with PowerStats is one that does require you to create an account and register, but that's very easy to do. And then it's nice because you can actually maintain an account, and in that you can save data that you've been collecting. So you can kind of build your own folder of data and tests that you run on things, searches that you've made. And this is overall, it's called the Data Lab, and you can see there's a variety of areas here. We're going to go into PowerStats, and you can see I've got a log in here. As I said, this is a free log on registration. Okay, so once we're in PowerStats, you've got a couple different options here, and I want to point out to you right away, if you look down here under Getting Started, there's what they call a Learning Center. This is very useful. This is full of training and help materials, and there are online training modules, and you can see, if you click here, there are a variety of different ones you can look at. So if this appears to be a database you may be interested in using, there are very specific how-tos in here that will go beyond what I'm going to show and demo for you, and they're the experts, so that would be the place to go to learn more. You can also get downloadable PDFs about how to do specific types of tests and working with the data in PowerStats. Down here we have technical documents. And I don't think you need to worry about this one. This is an area of detail we will not be going into in this class. You can see right over here that, again, like I said, you have an account basically. So if recent work that you've done is recorded here, these were some stats, these were some searches and data explorations I was running before. You can go into your library area and retrieve work that you've had done. You can import a file in here, but over here is where you get started with doing something new. And you can either choose to create a table or create a regression. We will get to regression a little bit later. A regression is a particular type of statistical analysis that essentially looks at the relationship between two or more variables and helps us to make basically loose predictions. We can have the identification of predictor variables, and based upon the correlation of those variables with other ones, we can make some, depending on the results we can get, we can make stronger or weaker claims to one variable being predictive of the outcome that we'd see in another one. But like I said, we'll get back to that in a couple weeks. Right now, let's start by creating a new table. I've clicked on that. And this is what you see come up. This is your work area in PowerStats. And the first thing that you do is you select what group you're going to work with. Like I said, there are multiple sets of data represented here, and we basically have two broad ones to choose from. Post-secondary students, again, higher education, that's college students, and pre-elementary. This database is drawing from information that was gathered on related to both young children and college students. You can also go right up here, and if you know the particular survey, this is where all the data comes from, you can choose that one. And you can see the majority of what's here are these post-secondary research studies, but here's the particular one that's providing the preschool information in this database. There are other areas here that have other information related to early childhood education. For our purposes, I'm going to take an example from post-secondary ed. And if you click on any of these boxes right here where there's a little asterisk, you'll see there's a lot more information available once it opens up. So when we click on beginning college students, we have some choices based upon which years of the survey we're looking at. Here's 2003 through 04, 95 through 96, 89 through 90. If we were going to look at graduate students, we'll go down there and see what our choices are. Again, they were interviewed at different times. This is a combination of both survey data and individual interview data. I'm going to go back here. I'm going to pick beginning college students for our demonstration. And I'm going to pick the most recent year that data was collected, 03 for 04. And it followed those beginning college students for 6 years to see what their outcomes were over 6 years. And you can see right here, you're given the approximate number of respondents to the survey and interviews right here for the different administration years. And here's some very valuable information down here below. You can go to a study website, which tells you more specific information about this research. You can view technical information if you so wanted to. And you can also find more specific information about variables, which is very important. This would be code book type information like I made reference to before. So let's select that group. And now we have a choice of the type of table that we're going to create. For our purposes right now, let's just pick a simple percentage distribution. You can see down below a little description of what the table would be like, and you can even look at a PDF that would show you examples of those tables, which is nice if you're really unsure of yourself. You can look at some tables and say, oh yeah, I kind of want one like that maybe, Or, no, that's not what I want, then go look at the other ones. Let's pick a simple percentage distribution. And a general template like this comes up. And you can see this is designed to be pretty much foolproof. We can't break it. Now, we can put some information in that won't work quite right and that will confuse it and give us, a table that doesn't really tell us anything. But we can't hurt anything here. It's very easy. You can just you see you've got little clues on what to do. You can drag and drop variables from over here on the left onto the table, either in rows or in columns. And down here, you can even add additional filters, which are typically demographic characteristics, kind of like what we were looking at in the ctreports.com website. So let's look and see what we got over here. If you open any of these labels, this is how the different variables get broken down. And so you can basically dive into this data and pull it apart in different ways. There's academic preparation, academics, degree programs and goals. You could take any one of these and drag it over to begin looking at it. I'm going to look at financial aid. And you can see there are a lot of different ways financial aid is looked at and broken up. A lot here. I'm going to pick expected family contribution. And if you guys remember from either when you were first, it's not going, come on. You have to pick it out, drag it over, and there we go. I'm just going to leave the default categories that are here. You could change this and change the scale if you want, but this looks pretty good to me, so I'm going to save this the way it is instead of making my own categories, and click Save. And you can see in my table, I've now got the scale and the range for the different levels of expected financial family contribution. As I was starting to say, if you remember doing your financial aid documentation, based upon what our undergrads put on there in terms of their information and their family information, the formula for financial aid that the Feds uses calculates an expected family contribution based upon income, expenses, family size, things like that. And we don't know exactly how that works. That's inside information, but here's the here are the general ranges that are used. And what I want to look at is how beginning college students have done. Remember, that's the group I picked. Students who are beginning college in 2003 through 2004, how they did in terms of their progress in college based upon what their expected family contribution is. And that would tell me if, because this expected family contribution is essentially a proxy measure for socioeconomic status. Kind of like with public schools, we look at free and reduced lunch as a proxy measure for SES or poverty level. We can look at these numbers as approximations of the SES level, the class level, income level of the families that we're looking at. So I want to see how these kids did in college. So to do that, I'm going to leave this financial aid area. I'm going to put that up here in the top area of my table. So I'm going to go out of financial aid, and I believe the variable I'm looking for is under academics. Let me look. No, not that one. I want to close that. I actually wanted I've been in here before. So I want persistence and attainment. In higher education, this idea of persistence is one of the key factors we look at. And that's basically kind of what it sounds like, that a student is able to stick with their program, with their college career, and make it through successfully, making good academic progress and getting a degree, rather than spinning their wheels and taking far too long, or leaving and quitting altogether, or going to a different institution. Although this is going to cover changes in institutions. So under persistence and attainment, let's see, I'm going to pick first degree type attained through 2009. If I click on this, it tells me a little bit more about it. And so I'll be able to see whether between 2003 and 2009 they got no degree at all, a certificate, an associate's degree, or a bachelor's degree. So I'm going to close this, and I'm going to take that variable and put it, oh, I got an email. I'm going to put it up here. And I'm going to look for any of these degrees showing up. So I'll click OK. And it doesn't automatically fill it in yet. We'll have to take the step and click on Create Table to get the numbers in there. So right now, I just want to review it to see if it looks the way that I want. So I've chosen to create a table where I'm looking at what type of degree students got by 2009. So that's within 6 years of starting, if they started in 2003. And I'm going to have that broken up by income level. Okay, let's click Create Table and see what we get. A window like this comes up. This is a technical matter, though the weighting of the variables is related to sample size and how the specific sample size is determined, whether some cases are included or excluded. I always just go with the recommended weighting, so just click OK here. And that will close. Sometimes it takes a few moments for the table to come together. And here's our table. We can see up along the top, this is a percentage with no degree, with a certificate, with an associate's, and with a bachelor's, and then totals. And here's our expected family contribution. And let's look and see what we have. Here's students that had no expected family contributions, so these would be fairly low SES families most likely. 61.4% ended up with no degree at all. 11.8% ended up with a bachelor's degree. Let's go to the other end of the spectrum. Those with an expected family contribution of $15,600 or more. Those are pretty high-income families. 37% had no degree. However, if we go over here to bachelor's degree, we see that 48.1% of them got a bachelor's degree by the end of those 6 years. And we actually see some pretty clear trends here. If we look here up and down, look at how these numbers work as we go down in SES level. We see a steady increase in the percentage of students that did not complete a degree at all. And look at this comparison, 61.4% here to 37.1% at the top. A 24.3, if I'm doing my math correctly, 24.3% difference. And in terms of no degree, and then if we look over here at bachelor's degree, 48.1% to 11.8%. And we see these trends consistent in different percentages across all the levels. So we actually see a pretty meaningful trend by just going in and poking around in the data a little bit. We see exceedingly clear evidence that the socioeconomic status of students, and we didn't break up the student population at all. This is all beginning college students. The only way we filtered it essentially was by expected family contribution. We can see the key pivotal role that the initial income levels have on college attainment, and we know from plenty of other information how predictive college attainment is of future income. So we see the cycle of inequality reproduced right here in the data right in front of our eyes. So what more could we do with this? We could edit the table up here if we wanted to and make some changes to it. We could also, I told you can do analyses in some of these interfaces. This one has a t-test tool, and we saw, which is a significance test for comparing means. So we could use the t-test tool to determine whether the differences between some of these groups and percentages were statistically significant, which is always a good thing to do, to be sure that what you're seeing with your eyeballs is actually statistically significantly different. And you saw when we first came in, there was also a tool for doing a regression, which is that predictive analysis I told you about. And regression would actually be an interesting application here, because we could do a regression and basically have a statistical result to show how predictive incoming income level was of the likelihood of future completion of a bachelor's degree. And if we wanted to go even deeper, we could go in and we could filter these levels out along gender lines, along race and ethnicity, and other factors related to students, such as their academic preparation, the types of towns they came from, things like this, to get an even more nuanced view of what's happening here in terms of the factors that contribute to the success or lack of success of our students. Okay, so that's one example of a tool at the NCES website that you can use. This one's great for higher education research, and they also had some information on early childhood education. In my next video, I'll take a look at the NAEP Data Explorer, which is about elementary and secondary standardized test results. Over and out.